So I don't know what the plural of Shalom Aleichem is, because it's mostly directed to a person, single person. So I don't know if there's a way of saying, except to say it to all of you, individually and collectively. Shalom Aleichem. I do want to say the Shalom Aleichem and love to one person, my most beloved rabbis. I've loved a lot of rabbis and still do, but one is most beloved. My co-author, my co-activist, my co-making life livable, and my co-thinker about how really to transform the world. That's Rabbi Phyllis Berman. And if I could, I would say to each one of you with a whole set of stories about how we worked together, lived together, and it wouldn't be possible. So I won't do it. And as I said in the film, the motto, I can't finish the work. Nobody of us will be able to say, finished, in bringing justice and love and peace to the entire earth with us humans as part of it. But we can live it with each other more and more. So I want to say what a prophet would need to say in 15 minutes. I'm sure Jeremiah and Isaiah and Amos and all those folks took much longer, but I was told, here we just stick to 15 minutes. So let me start with saying what I'm going to say now is me. It's, you might say, from the Shalom Center, but it's not by or for the Shalom Center. I'm about to start, maybe I've started already right now, a new role in the Shalom Center that we're calling Prophetic Envoy. So I'm going to start with words that may feel troubling to many of you. The shortest way to say it is I don't believe there is a Jewish government of the Jewish state. There are certainly Jews, but they have done their best to get rid of the values that have infused the Jewish people, not only for the last 2,000 years, but even the Torah talks about the rights of people who are not the God wrestling folk, not Israel, who live in the land and who are entitled to a whole set of rights. So even the Bible, which didn't blink about bloodshed, was clear about that. I think we have in the last year suffered through. If we thought that that government was a Jewish government, not just a government made up of Jews who had abandoned Judaism, just like the government, the de facto regime that has governed Gaza and claims to be Muslim, but in fact has abandoned everything that makes, for example, this place so wonderful. Two governments that have become addicted to violence, to hatred, to racism, to being willing to kill the people who live in the other government's space. That's going to be, if we thought that that government was a Jewish government, it would be a stain on the moral history of the Jewish people that will take decades to reverse. So for me, there is no Jewish government of what I would hope might become a state of all its citizens, and perhaps a confederation with the other folks who claim descent from Abraham. That's a harsh thing to say. I don't like saying it, but I couldn't stay sane and Jewish if I didn't say it. So that leaves the question, what do we do? And many of us have devoted themselves in the last year to trying to move the government of the United States to be serious American, which, you know, I lived through the US war against Vietnam. I lived through the US war against Iraq. I lived through the US destruction of the democratically elected government of Chile. So I think that it's not that the state that calls itself Israel is worse than other states on the planet, not worse than the US in the last generation, and now still not worse than Russia invading and destroying huge hunks of Ukraine, not worse than China in Tibet, or with the Buddhists of Tibet, and with the Muslims, Uyghurs. But that doesn't make the state or its government Jewish in the deepest sense. So what do we do? Okay, so some people have taken Jewishly the obligation to try to get the United States to force an end to the massacres in Gaza. But there's another really crucial way to respond. And that, I think, is to invent a new kind of prophetic diaspora Judaism. What does that mean? It means looking around at each other and saying, we have a vision constantly evolving and growing. We have a vision of a world, a country, and a world, and an earth of justice and love. We even have an extraordinary piece of Torah for the whole next era of our living, way beyond individuals like me who ain't gonna last that era. We have the Song of Songs, which is filled with love between human beings. And I think just to prove the song itself doesn't want you to think this is utopia perfect, there's an incident or two in which there is some violence in the Song of Songs. I think to say, look, the world we're used to is full of violence, and there are occasional moments of love, peace, justice. In this world, which we can in fact make, there are a few instances of violence, but mostly the world is of love and justice and peace. But there's more than that to making prophetic diaspora Judaism. That means a Judaism that takes the decent use of nonviolent power seriously, working with other communities that now feel and are threatened by the demand for a white, male, heterosexual, Christian nation, and who have really been able to put together great power in order to enact that. So I would say part of what it means to be a prophetic diaspora Jewish community is to make alliances with those parts of the Black and brown and women's and gay and indigenous and other communities that have finally in the last 50 years said, no, we recognize that you all, white, Christian, male, heterosexual, Christian, all that, of course you belong in America. Nobody's trying to make you be forgotten or ineffective, but we are also part of this country, and we will organize to be ourselves in the deepest sense of the Jewish values and to work as allies with others who out of their own culture, their own politics, their own situation, their own economics, are ready to struggle for a fully inclusive democracy. So in the Shalom Center, that has already meant that we have begun to invent what we call actifests, activist festivals, taking the festivals not only for visions of the past, visions of triumph, of survival, of making new and transforming the old, but making the festivals also about the future. And so what will it mean to take Isaiah's extraordinary Haftarah about Yom Kippur? You think just hanging your head down and mostly just hanging your head down, maybe wearing sackcloth and ashes, you think that's the fast? I was talking about? No, that's not the fast I was talking about. The fast I was talking about was food for everybody. What would it mean for us to take that not as a really nice Haftarah to chant in the synagogues on Yom Kippur, but to act on, whether on Yom Kippur or the next days or the days of Sukkot? What would it mean to take those days? What would it mean to take Tisha B'Av when traditionally we're mourning the destruction of two incredible buildings that were deliberately intended to be microcosms of the planet, and where God, whatever you thought God would be, I think it's the breath of life. I think if you try to pronounce Yud Hey Vav Hey instead of saying Adonai, which doesn't make sense at all, if you really try to pronounce Yud Hey Vav Hey or YHWH, you'd get a breath, the breath of life. So what would it mean for us to take that commitment to the breath of life into the future? And it wouldn't just mean the actifest that we've already started. This is one way of doing that. And we did it with Purim in some very radically transformative ways. And we've done it with Passover, with Pesach, in transformative ways. And we've done it with Tisha B'Av, mourning not just two microcosms of the planet, but mourning the attempts at destroying the planet by modern pharaohs who can get richer and richer and richer, hyper wealthy, by destroying the temple of all life, the universal temple, Earth. But there's more. Should we be rethinking how we recreate what happened in the 70s? Tzedakah collectives, groups of people who pooled their money for social responsibility with each other and then voted one person, one vote, not $1, one vote, on how to spend that money to bring real sharing to the world. Do we think that a prophetic diaspora Judaism should reopen the question of who our prophets is? Sorry about that. And it's too far away for me to stop it. Oh, but it stopped. Okay. So, where was I? What? Oh, right. Reopen the question, who is a prophet? Is Martin Luther King a prophet? Should there be a Haftarah for Martin Luther King, for Abraham, Joshua, Heschel, for Gloria Steinem, for I was trying to think the name. One of the things that happens when you get to be 91 is his name is sort of vanish and come back 5 minutes later, but I'm not going to wait for the 5 minutes. So I've also struggled to know, could there be any shared activism of prophetic diaspora with other newly committed groups struggling for justice and a voice at the table, a voice that doesn't require an air force and nuclear weapons. And what occurred to me, interesting, what occurred to me was the poison that is afflicting American society more and more is the poison of investing insane amounts of money in the military budget and in especially plans that are now afoot to make more nuclear weapons than the thousands that are already in the American arsenal. Crazy. And more of them and more intensive power in each of them. So I invite you to think about whether a campaign on, and I certainly won't live to see it finished, and maybe many of us in this room would not, but a campaign to make sharp reductions in the military budget and put that money to life, put that money to child care. It's shameful. The United States, richest country in the world, doesn't have a child care program like a number of European countries. To put that money into public education, which is getting starved by people who don't care about it because they're too rich to bother. So that's what I hope to be able to put out on the table as prophetic vision, that we have to take the lesson of what went wrong in what was a totally decent, at the very beginning, before statehood, totally decent effort at creating a Jewish community, and made mistaken judgments, wrong judgments. And I understand why. I understand what it's like to be traumatized. I understand that. I felt at least semi-traumatized this last year. So that's the best I can do at this moment. I hope to learn more and learn more whether people think that what I've described is the important way for us to move to recreate, renew, transform a Jewish community that takes the deepest values of the Jewish people and the Jewish history into the future. I've spoken. Thank you. Thank you.